The Premier League, by far the most popular league in the world. And that's saying something because it sits at the pinnacle of the most watched sport in the world. It is easily the most watched league in the world, ahead of the juggernauts like the NFL, the NBA, La Liga, etc. You get the picture. And it's no mean feat for a league that's probably the youngest among all the ones mentioned. Yes, established in 1992, the Premier League took the world by the storm, and in just 30-odd years, it has become a behemoth that almost no league in the world can compete with. But how did it happen? How did such a young league become so prominent that it surpassed its European counterparts? And what effect has it had on the sport as a whole? Well, let's take a look, shall we? Consider subscribing to our channel. It's free and helps us a ton. Thanks. Now, according to the Premier League website, the Premier League was formed because, and I quote, in the early 1990s, English First Division clubs believed that a radical restructuring of football was needed if they and the game in general were to develop and flourish. Sounds very reasonable, right? But that's not why Premier League came into existence. For this, we need to take a walk down the memory lane. The Premier League was formally established in 1992, but its building blocks were laid down well before that. You see, before Premier League, it was the Football League as the premier competition. Football League First Division was the top flight of football in England. Established in 1888, the Football League was the league that made the sport professional. Now, the history of Football League is a topic on its own, but for now, it suffices to say that for over 100 years, the Football League remained the top professional league system in England. So, you may have the question, why then was the Premier League even required? Well, the simple answer is money. But that is way too simple of an answer. You see, modern football, or I'd say modern sport, is built around TV money. Professional leagues around the world command billions in broadcasting rights. But that wasn't always the case. For example, BBC were paying £5,000 for a match day in 1965 to the league. And all of that money was being shared by the Football League with all of their clubs, which roughly comes to £50 per club per match day. As the game grew, so did the TV money. But the system of sharing TV revenue with all the clubs in the Football League remained largely the same. You see where we are going with this? You see where the clubs started seeing some problems for themselves? It meant that the big clubs were still very equal to the others who were not as successful. A Manchester United did not have the financial superiority to such an extent that they couldn't get relegated. Teams like Derby, like Nottingham Forest, could go and win the league and European championships. You see, most clubs want the glory, but also the most money they can make without the risks that come with it. The idea of the Premier League wasn't born out of some philanthropic necessity for the, quote, growth of the game, as they'd like you to remember. It was literally to secure the most amount of money with as little risk as possible. Even through 1980s, more and more money was being cornered by the big clubs. The first thing to fall was the gate sharing in 1983. Clubs no longer needed to share their matchday gate revenue with the away team. Now a club like Manchester United that had the biggest stadium gained a huge advantage. Throughout the 80s, this inequality kept growing. The big clubs kept gobbling up more and more of the TV money. In 1985, under the threat of breaking away from the Football League, the smaller clubs had to agree to a new split, which meant of the total TV revenue, 50% went to the first division, 25% to the second, and the rest of the 25% to the third and fourth divisions combined. But that wasn't enough either. In fact, it wasn't just England. In 1987, AC Milan's owner Silvio Berlusconi, Real Madrid president Ramon Mendoza, and Glasgow Rangers secretary Campbell Ogilvie led by UEFA President Jacques Georges, proposed a Super League that would be attractive to, quote, international TV broadcasters, would be able to allow contestant teams more income, and would give more possibilities to progress through it for economical and management guarantees, end quote. But that's a topic for another time. In October 1990, the Football League had produced a document, One Game, One Team, One Voice, calling for unity, a joint managing board with the FA. In it, the league said, quote, with respect to television, football is about to enter an era of unprecedented opportunity, end quote. So the huge amount of money was on the horizon. Everybody knew it. Sky B had entered the market, and the ITV BBC monopoly on football was about to shift. Money was about to pour in. But the self-appointed Big Five, that is Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United, Everton and Tottenham Hotspur, wanted more of the pie. So while the Football League were going on around the country with their unity plan, the Big Five were meeting with Greg Dyke, the managing director of London Weekend Television, in secret to chalk up a plan for a breakaway league. Dyke was promising something the clubs had always wanted: big chunk of the TV money with minimal risk. Dyke believed that it would be more lucrative for ITV if only the larger clubs in the country were featured on national television. The biggest difference between the proposed Premier League and the Football League was that the Football League shared the TV revenue with all the clubs across all their divisions, while the Premier League would share their revenue with only those clubs that were part of it. When Dyke presented this idea to the Big Five, they were ecstatic and decided to press ahead with it. There was, however, a caveat. The Premier League would not survive without the FA's blessings. And convincing FA? That was no easy task. So why was convincing FA so difficult? Because, first of all, they are the governing body of football in England. Ever since its foundation in 1863, they have governed all professional football in England. And if FA's core values held any merit, it would have been near impossible to get their permission for such a breakaway league. FA's moral values, fair play, teamwork, sportsmanship, everything screamed FA's disapproval for a league that was everything far from it. They were supposedly the organization to uphold and maintain the sporting spirits of the club and prevent shareholders from exploiting them for monetary gains. The Premier League's very basis betrayed all those values. Then how would they convince FA? The so-called big clubs appointed David Dean of Arsenal and Noel White, a Liverpool director, to approach FA and find out if they'd be in favor of this breakaway. It wasn't going to be easy, was it? Well, they were about to find out that it was easier than they anticipated. The then men in charge of FA, led by Sir Bert Milliship, had pretty much abandoned the FA's mission. FA shared a fraught relationship with the Football League, and that had become a huge point of contention for Football League's message of unity. They were butting heads with the league over issues like club versus country. League's call for unity was seen only as a threat to their own authority. So when they were approached with the idea for a breakaway league, they saw that not as a threat to the fabric of football in England, but as an opportunity to stick it to the league. As an opportunity to undermine the Football League. It was the FA that provided the blueprint to smash the league into pieces, carving out a league with a smaller top division. They even wanted a league consisting of just 18 teams, but under pressure from Ken Bates of Chelsea, a yo-yo club at the time, they kept it at 22. Ultimately, the FA wanted to weaken Football League's position. Football League's then president Bill Fox described the FA's plans to form a breakaway league as an attempt to hijack the first division. But FA was successful and the Premier League was born. Now, Premier League wanted to sell their own TV rights, separate from the Football League so that the earnings from the broadcasts divided equally between its member clubs only. The decision to break away and start a new league also gave clubs the chance to vote on decisions through a one club, one vote motion. The TV landscape in England was changing rapidly as in October 1990, Rupert Murdoch's Sky had merged with BSB to form a new company, B-Sky B. But the financial position was far from healthy. For example, by the end of 1991, B-Sky B, while stable, had accumulated a debt of £2 billion. So they needed specific programming to make the company profitable. Eventually, they decided that football, especially the Premier League, would suit them perfectly. Premier League chief Rick Parry and chairman Sir John Quinton were assigned the task to find the perfect network. They first wanted to work with ITV, led by Greg Dyke, but ITV found the cost too prohibitive. Meanwhile, B-Sky B attempted to make a joint offer with ITV, but that also didn't come to fruition. Eventually, B-Sky B partnered with the BBC, who wanted the highlights package, and they bid jointly. The bidding process in itself was a mess, with ITV and B-Sky B getting into a bidding war and lots of internal politics, which is a story in itself, but eventually it was B-Sky B that won when 14 of the 22 participating clubs voted in their favour. Arsenal, Aston Villa, Everton, Leeds United, Liverpool and Manchester United voted for ITV, but the two-third majority won out. And thus began the cycle of unprecedented amount of money being poured into the Premier League by the broadcasters. So Premier League was born in 1992, usurping the Football League as the top flight of English football pyramid. The Football League First Division had to take its place as the second tier, and so on. So now it begs the question, what have been the consequences? For the Premier League, it's been great, it's been heavens. They went from strength to strength as TV money just poured in, and not just from England, but all across the world. The Premier League became the most lucrative league in all of the sports. Billions upon billions were put into the Premier League by the broadcasters worldwide. A review by Deloitte in 2014 showed that the Premier League generated more revenue than any of the football leagues in the world, with total club revenues of £2.5 billion in 2012-13. You can only imagine how much the figure is in the current year. Just staying in the league became the most lucrative thing for the clubs, let alone winning it. So much so that domestic cups like the FA Cup or the EFL Cup continue to lose significance. This attracted huge investments into the Premier League clubs as well. The big clubs were already becoming less of community-run clubs, but now big-time billionaires saw the potential of revenue and started buying up these clubs. Americans, Russians, Middle Eastern owners started investing heavily and making these into more of a brand than football clubs. The Premier League clubs started attracting star players from all across the world. But it's not been all hunky-dory. This is the picture that the Premier League loves projecting. That somehow it's been great, it's been amazing. But that's not the entirety of truth. While Premier League is awash with money, it also washed away a lot of clubs. By 2004 itself, 36 of the 72 Football League clubs went insolvent, into administration or receivership. Clubs like Leeds, who tried to chase the dream of winning the league and in Europe by spending tons and were so grossly financially mismanaged that they almost reached the brink of extinction. Doing a Leeds is a term for a reason. The local fans are getting priced out in search of a global fan base as matchday and season ticket prices keep rising. Clubs that get relegated from the Premier League are always in danger of running into financial struggles. While clubs at the top kept cornering more and more of the share of the money, clubs at the bottom and in the lower tiers kept getting into financial crisis. While people scoff at Chelsea and Manchester City and Newcastle United for their owners, it was very much the Premier League that prepared such circumstances where such owners became a necessity to become successful. Now we stand at the precipice of history as Premier League has become so powerful that even a mid-table Premier League club can outbid the giants of football from Germany or Italy. Such is the financial muscle of the Premier League. It's kind of funny that Premier League has all these profitability and sustainability rules when it in itself is a result of keeping profitability ahead of sustainability of all of football. Ain't that crazy? Thank you for watching. Like if you liked it, share if you find it worthy, and subscribe for more content like this. This is Salty Football.